Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Alamdar. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. The Taliban have rejected the predictions of a potential civil war in Afghanistan after foreign troops withdrawal. In a statement, the group said all foreign and internal parties should stop plotting schemes to prolong the war. Meanwhile, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby says the U.S. military still has the authority to protect Afghan forces. Israeli forces have injured at least 87 Palestinians protesting against illegal Jewish settlements in the West Bank. Occupying forces used tear gas and fired live and rubber-coated steel bullets at demonstrators in Nablus. The Palestinian Red Crescent said 3 people were wounded by live bullets and 84 by rubber bullets. Brazil has registered nearly 1,900 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 65,000 cases overnight. In Pakistan, 34 people lost their lives and 1,400 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed over 3.9 million lives and infected more than 183 million people so far. Around 200 U.S. companies have been hit by a colossal ransomware attack. In a statement, the security firm Huntress Labs said it believes the Russia-linked Revil ransomware gang is responsible for the attack. Meanwhile, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency says it is taking action to address the attack. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. The Taliban have rejected the predictions of a potential civil war in Afghanistan after foreign troops withdrawal. In a statement, the group said all foreign and internal parties should stop plotting schemes to continue the war. The Taliban said the thought of Afghanistan transforming into a proxy battleground is completely against prevailing realities. The group accused foreign forces of planning to use Afghans for their own interest after pulling out of the country. It said Afghan nation is united and has no intention of fighting what it called the battles of invaders following the end of the occupation. The statement added the Taliban have conquered the centers of 120 districts in the past few weeks. Earlier, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said the turnover of Bagram base to Kabul was a key milestone in the withdrawal. But he said the U.S. military still has the authority to protect Afghan forces. Meanwhile, as the Taliban and Kabul's forces continue to fight, Afghan Defense Ministry said the security forces have killed at least 90 fighters in Helmand and Kandahar province, while the Taliban claimed they have captured 5 more districts in Badakhshan province. Israeli forces have injured at least 87 Palestinians protesting against illegal Jewish settlements in the West Bank. Occupying forces used tear gas and fired live and rubber-coated steel bullets at demonstrators in Nablus. The Palestinian Red Crescent said 3 people were wounded by live bullets and 84 by rubber bullets. Occupying forces also attacked protesters who rallied against Israel's plan to demolish Palestinian 17 homes in Silvan. According to international law, all Jewish settlements in occupied territories are considered illegal. There are about 650,000 settlers in West Bank, including occupied Jerusalem, living in 164 settlements and 116 outposts. Arab coalition in Yemen says it has destroyed another armed drone launched by the Houthis. In a statement, the coalition said the drone was aimed at the Saudi city of Khamis Mushat. The command said the booby-trapped aerial vehicle was shot down over Yemeni airspace. Moreover, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation has denounced the Houthis on ending attacks. The OIC dubbed the attacks as a case of terrorism against the civilian populations and facilities. Brazil has registered nearly 1,900 deaths from COVID-19 and more than 65,000 cases overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed over 3.9 million lives and infected more than 183 million people so far. More in this report. With thousands of deaths daily, investigations into the government's handling of the pandemic, and waxing controversies, Brazil has been in turmoil. A top prosecutor has agreed to request an investigation of President Jair Bolsonaro for neglect in the process of procuring an Indian vaccine. Municipalities denied a newspaper report that cities administered expired AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine shots. Brazilian officials blame the confusion on an error in the System of Public Health Network, SUS. Meanwhile, China said it will send 1.5 million Sinovac vaccines to El Salvador, while the U.S. will send 1.5 million Moderna vaccines to the Central American nation. Over in a remote indigenous village of Ecuador's Amazon, residents received vaccinations as the country steps up immunizations. While Rani's community previously received information on the benefits of receiving immunization.
We have started the vaccination program for the Warani population located in the Ecuadorian Amazon in the heart of Yasuni Park. This process has been done together with the Health Ministry, and we have vaccinated approximately 100 people so far.
Europe's medicines regulator has approved a scale-up of Johnson & Johnson's plant in the Netherlands that produces the drug substance used in its vaccine. As Delta variant is endemic in Britain and is expected to become so in Germany this month, German Health Ministry has announced measures to boost vaccines' effectiveness. Berlin says it will possibly combine a first shot of the AstraZeneca vaccine with a second shot of BioNTech, Pfizer, or Moderna. Over in France, the Delta variant now represents around a third of COVID cases in the country.
It is the Delta variant that is very contagious. It represents nearly one-third of positive cases in our country, and it has increased by nearly 75% in 1 week. So we really need to understand that today there is no resurgence of the epidemic in our country, but the infection rate, meaning the spread of the virus, has stopped slowing. We are at around 1,800 new daily cases, and we see that while the Alpha variant and the other variants that we know well continue to decrease, the Delta variant has started increasing.
The U.S. says it will ship 4 million doses of Moderna vaccine to Indonesia via the COVAX Global Sharing Program as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia will restrict travel to and entry from Ethiopia, UAE, Vietnam, and Afghanistan over coronavirus concerns. Pakistan has registered 34 deaths from COVID-19 and 1,400 cases overnight. The Health Ministry says the nationwide tally of deaths is approaching 22,400. It says the country's passivity rate has once again surged to 2.9%. The ministry notes out of over 32,000 active cases, more than 1,800 are critical. Pakistan has so far reported over 961,000 cases, while more than 906,000 of them have recovered. The country has administered over 16.7 million doses of coronavirus vaccine so far. Pakistan has expressed outrage over its inclusion in the U.S. Child Soldiers Prevention Act list. The designation could lead to strict sanctions on military assistance and participation in peacekeeping programs. In a statement, the Foreign Office said Pakistan doesn't support any entity recruiting or using child soldiers. It said the inclusion of Pakistan in the list depicts a factual error and lack of understanding. The Foreign Office said Pakistan is committed to fighting the scourge of human trafficking. The UN says Libya talks aimed at paving the way for elections in late December failed to find common ground. Assistant Secretary General of the UN Support Mission described the talks as heated debate marked by threats of walkouts. Raistan Zenenga said the failure of the talks does not bode well for the credibility of Libyan political dialogue forum. UN officials said they could not agree on several circulating proposals, provoking organizers to extend the talks. However, Zenenga urged the UN officials to keep on working to pursue a workable compromise for the elections in Libya. The UN had expected to establish the constitutional basis for presidential and parliamentary elections by July 1st, but failed to do so. The US has removed sanctions on 3 Iranians, but says the decision does not reflect a change in its policy towards Tehran. The Treasury Department said it has determined that the 3 Iranians should no longer be blocked under an executive order. A Treasury spokesperson added that the US decision has nothing to do with indirect talks on reviving the Iran nuclear deal. The high-level talks are underway in Vienna to revive the 2015 deal from which Washington pulled out in 2018. Both sides say differences remain and want the other side to make greater concessions before resuming. Around 200 US companies have been hit by a colossal ransomware attack. The hack targeted Florida-based IT company Kaseya before spreading through corporate networks that use its software. In a statement, Kaseya said it is investigating the attack and noted that only a small number of firms were affected. However, security firm Huntress Lab says the number is already about 200 and counting. In a statement, the firm said it believes the Russia-linked Revel ransomware gang is responsible for the supply chain attack. Meanwhile, the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency says it is taking action to address the attack. In a bid to ramp up pressure on Myanmar's junta, the U.S. has added 4 companies to its trade blacklist and imposed sanctions on key military officials. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Washington will continue to take measures against the military until it restores democracy. The move comes as the Treasury Department separately blacklisted 22 people linked to Myanmar's military regime. In a statement, it said the curbs were imposed over the junta's suppression of democracy and violence against its people. Earlier, the UN said the Myanmar military has killed at least 883 civilians and detained over 5,200 people. However, the country's foreign ministry disputed the figures, describing them of unverifiable facts. It also complained that the UN website carried a link to an anti-junta underground national unity government. Meanwhile, anti-regime protesters held mock funeral for coup leader Min Aung Hlaing on his birthday across the country. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says she hopes the relations with the UK can be reset following years of Brexit-related tensions. She is in Britain during her 22nd and final visit before stepping down later this year. In a joint press conference with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Merkel expressed interest in a new bilateral treaty. Merkel said she is optimistic that a solution can be found to the new trading arrangements as they relate to Northern Ireland. Johnson said he is confident that the thorny issue will be resolved following his meeting with Merkel. The Chancellor also addressed Johnson's cabinet via video call, the first foreign leader to do so since U.S. President Bill Clinton in 1997. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the U.S. state of Florida, the death toll from a residential building collapse in Miami has risen to 22. Rescue workers pulled out 2 more bodies from the rubble. Authorities say 188 people have been accounted for so far, while 126 are still missing. They are feared buried beneath tons of pulverized concrete and twisted metal as the search stretched into its 9th day. Nobody has been pulled alive from the debris since the condo came down on 24th of June. Meanwhile, Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniela Levine Cava signed an emergency order to demolish the remains of the building.
This afternoon, I signed an emergency order authorizing the demolition of the building in the interest of public health and safety, as soon as the engineers sign off on the next steps to begin the demolition process. So it's important to note that we're still evaluating all possible impacts and determining the best timeline to actually begin the demolition.
Officials in North Miami Beach have also ordered evacuation of a residential complex after deeming it unsafe. And now moving on, Hurricane Elsa has battered the island nation of Barbados, sparking floods and causing widespread damage. Officials say the hurricane triggered power outages, toppled trees, and damaged homes in the south of the island. Authorities have urged Barbadians to remain under shelter and only leave homes if the structures were damaged. No deaths or injuries have been attributed to the hurricane so far. Later, Elsa pounded St. Vincent with heavy rains and winds as it continued to move towards Haiti. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says the storm is blowing maximum sustained winds of 140 kilometers per hour. Earth is one country, and we are all citizens of that one country. These are the words of an 83-year-old Frenchman who claims to have visited every existing country in the world. More about his globe-trotting in this report.
Andre Brogros, the now retired globetrotter, says he has visited 251 countries and territories over the course of his lifetime. The territories include unrecognized states such as Somaliland or Tristan da Cunha Island, the most remote inhabited archipelago of the world.
I might make people smile, but I think that in order to travel well, there's only one recipe, and it is not in tourist guides. You need to love people, and then they'll come to you, because you need to understand that travel depends on the traveler.
The adventurer first left France at the age of 17 to work as a waiter in Scotland. His travels would end up taking Brogro across Europe to Canada and from there around the world. From 1967 to 1973, he traveled 400,000 kilometers by hitching rides on cars, boats, and planes, spending less than $1 a day.
After a month, I realized I was spending $1 a day, and I thought to myself, wait a minute, if you keep on spending $1 a day, the whole world is yours. That's when I realized that if I only hitchhiked without going to hotels, I could see the whole world. That first became my method in South America. I did not know I would travel 400,000 kilometers hitchhiking. It just happened like that.
His journey only came to a temporary end as dysentery forced him to return to France to heal. After that, Brogro kept on traveling every year until 2019, when he finally settled down as his age did not allow him to go on. Brogro has written several books, produced a documentary using the footage he recorded while traveling, and given dozens of conferences to share the teachings of his adventures.
Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.